Hello, podcast family, and welcome to Regulation Revolution, where we are igniting a revolution to help the world effectively manage and respond to their emotional experiences. It's not about what happens to us, but how we react that creates harmony or chaos in our lives. Emotional regulation is a complex process involving many factors. We offer this podcast to provide insight for you about how you fine-tune and powerfully decide to transform your complex emotional states into empowered instances of self-mastery, peace, and increased awareness. Instead of having your emotions control you, you can learn to have control over your emotions. The following program in no way constitutes therapeutic counseling and does not establish a therapeutic relationship or offer any premise of confidentiality with any listener or participant. For more information, visit us at regulationrevolution.com. Welcome to today's episode of Regulation Revolution with your co-hosts Amy Reamer and Barry Vassar, Heart and Mind. Amy is a licensed therapist, professional speaker, and teacher. Barry is a pre-licensed therapist and practice manager at Heart and Mind. To find out more about Heart and Mind, please visit heartmindrva.com. Well, welcome back to Regulation Revolution for another week. This is Barry Vassar. I'm here with Amy Reamer. Thank you for tuning in with us. Just want to give you a recap of some things we've been going over. We've gone a couple of episodes in where we've defined regulation. Last week, our most recent, we talked about regulation in the womb and looking at the development of the child in utero. And so we want to move forward with that as we start looking at this little toddler, this child that's now entered into the world. What do we do with it? Where are we going to teach this thing that we have been blessed with or given or cursed with, depending on where you're at in your parenting and whose genes that child got? So as a new parent, meeting the physical needs of another little human being through co-regulation, which starts in the womb, but does not stop in the womb. It continues into early childhood. And today we're going to look at some of those developmental issues that come along, some of the ways you can offer regulation to that new child that you have. What's our episode title today? Know Your ABCs, Alpha, Beta Children. Now, I don't know about you generation folks out there to keep track of all these generations. I have lost track. Amy, I don't know if you're keeping track, but we went apparently A through Z, and now this whole group between 2010 and now is Alpha, and ones being born now are Beta. But anyway, you're probably going to have one of these.
Alpha goes apparently through 2024. If you had a baby this year or you're pregnant maybe and expecting a baby next year in 2024, if you're still watching this in 2023 and you have an alpha baby, and then if your baby is born in 2025 to 2039, that's generation beta. So we're trying to talk with these folks that are either pregnant now, having little babies now, or maybe planning to have little babies soon.
You got it. And even those with a 1-year-old that they're still figuring out why is he still crying at night and everything else. But on regulation, you brought up that there was a video, a clip that you wanted for those folks who are watching this to be able to see. Did you want to show that now?
Yeah. So I wanted to give a little bit of taste for folks of what co-regulation is like for an infant and how much they rely on their caregiver to regulate. And so the still face experiment was done by Dr. Edward Tronick and has done studies on this. And this is a YouTube video of one, and you can YouTube it. There's a still face. This one happens to be with a mom. There are still faces with dads. Again, you can go and Google still face experiment if you want to see others, but it really shows that importance. So I wanted to give people a look at this so that they would understand what we're talking about, and then we'll come back and talk about that. All right, so let me see if I can do my techie stuff right and share. All right, so we're seeing this now, right? Yep. All right, I'm going to make it full screen and go.
Babies this young are extremely responsive to the emotions and the reactivity and the social interaction that they get from the world around them. This is something that we started studying 30, 40 years ago, when people didn't think that infants could engage in social interaction. In the still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby, who's about a year of age.
You like girl. Oh.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her. This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this. And then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, come on, why are we doing this? Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions, they turn away, they feel the stress of it, they actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
Okay. Papa's here. And what are you doing? Oh, yeah, so with me. Yeah.
It's a little like the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is that normal stuff that goes on, that we all do with our kids. The bad is when something bad happens, but the infant can overcome it. After all, when you stop the still face, the mother and the baby start to play again. The ugly is when you don't give the child any chance to get back to the good. There's no reparation, and they're stuck in that really ugly situation.
I got to tell you, that's probably the saddest thing I've seen today. just thinking of that.
No, it's hard.
Yes.
But like that was a 2.5 minute video, and the full 2 minutes, of course, wasn't her with her face shut. They moved that forward a little bit, but there's such a powerful message about regulation and what it is and how babies don't have much of. You saw immediately when mom dropped her affect, the baby knew it right away and tried this and tried that and screeched and pointed and then eventually just break down crying, and mom was able to get that back. So what Dr. Tronick was saying about, you can have stressful moments where we miss it or we're busy and they lose it, and then we can come back and we can repair it. But if we think about things about 0 to 12 months, how quickly that brain is developing and growing, and look at things like depression. There's studies out there that showed babies' cortisol levels went up when a depressive parent would come to them, and then their cortisol levels would drop when the depressive parents went away. I think about this, we talk about this generation alpha beta, right? And the phones and how parents are on our phones so much. So if you think about that mom dropping her affect of her face, that's not a whole lot different from a mom sitting there on her phone when the baby's trying to communicate and get a need met and want to socialize with that mom. Or what about substance use? Someone's drinking heavily, using drugs, and they're not tuned in. What about just stress in general, when people are extremely stressed and they checked out? And so that shows you how powerful co-regulation is and how babies are really relying on us as adults to let them know that they're present and they're okay and we're here and we're going to take care of them and it's going to be okay. And so it, again, going back to, it's not about being a perfect parent and getting everything exactly right. Tolerable, I think the word is tolerable levels of stress that keep us within our window actually help us to grow. That makes our teeter-totter work better. I'm not saying that we don't need to go out and purposely stress our children, because we're probably going to do it without trying. But we can give ourselves grace for if we're having a bad day, we don't meet that need right away. As long as we just come back and we repair, then it works good. But I just think the video is just so powerful in showing the power behind co-regulation with an adult for those infants.
Well, one of the things that made me think of was in our last episode, we talked about the tiger, the owl, and the hippo. And if you did not get last episode, please go and you will understand tiger, owl, and hippo for all of you listeners out there. But the babies are born with a big tiger. Like you said, they can't regulate. They have this basic drive for need, food, hold me, and they have no way of communicating such. What made me think of that was seeing that they have that inability to regulate on their own. They really are regulated or dysregulated by their environment and by the caregivers. And I know that's one of the phrases you used before about parents need to be the anchors, I think, for regulation, because they can really just really pick up on that.
And so when their affect is so dropped in the video, that's like the anchor disappeared. It's like the anchor is gone. And so it is like, it's like the parent has become invisible. And so even though the mom was physically present sitting in front of her, because she was not vocalizing, she wasn't communicating with the child, she might as well have left the room because she wasn't there in presence, which is why if someone is depressed, someone is using a substance that really sort of depresses their system, or someone dissociates. I've had where moms grew up in domestic violence and their kid is having a tantrum, and there's something about that dysregulation that the child is going through triggers the mom's tiger, and the response is to dissociate or check out. And so if someone is doing that and they're checking out and the kid is like, just like that little baby was like putting the hands out trying to get the mom's attention, they're gone. And they need that anchor and it's disappeared. Gotcha. So staying present is almost just as important as staying regulated.
Well, yeah. Well, I noticed it in playing with my own kids and such like that just sitting on the floor with them, a lot of times, because I'll be talking to parents, they're like, I don't have time to sit on the floor and do an hour's worth of Legos and do stuff like that. And I've realized, because I've got small ones or they're getting bigger, but I can sit on the floor and all I have to do is pick up a Lego or two and stick it on there. And when they say, did you see what I did? I look and see what they did, tell them good job. And they're just happy that I'm sitting there. Now, meanwhile, I've got something on TV. I'm not saying I'm a great parent, but they want me present in that moment with them. And so it's a lot of times I think as parents, we feel like we have to be doing, and it feels like the kids are asking these demands of us, but it's really just amounting to, they want to know that we're there. I think that you're available, I guess.
And when they don't have their own ability to regulate, your regulation actually lets them know that they're okay. And so if you're not present, if you're not there when they need it, then they feel almost like they're disappearing. It's not just that you disappeared, it's like, am I disappearing? Because they disappeared because they don't have that sense of self yet. They haven't built that. And so for babies, that means when you're feeding them, talk to them. You can have them in a little seat. You don't have to be holding them. If you want to hold the bottle up and talk to them and stir the soup on the stove, if you need to do that at the same time. Everybody's busy, but don't prop the bottle up in the car seat and go into the other room to go fold the laundry and put it away while they're eating.
Right.
Basic needs isn't just about the belly being full or getting enough rest. It's a sending a message that you're okay, that you're taken care of, that you're important, that you're valuable, you're worthy. I'm here. I'm not disappearing. All of that. So we talk about, everybody talks about, best example is like babies in orphanages. Babies in orphanages get fed, they have shelter, they have clothes, but they tend to have the worst regulation and emotion difficulties and impact to their development if they're in an institution like that during these developmental phases. And so then if you only say, well, they are fed and they're this and they got shelter and they get all their basic needs met, why do they have such problems? Because the biggest need of co-regulation was not met. And the messages that go along with these basic needs, which are that you're important, you're valuable, you're loved, you're cared for. Think about when you feed a baby and you're making eye contact with them and they smile. It's not about the milk or the formula or the pouch or whatever. It's about this person in the world cared enough about me to give me food and make sure that I'm okay. And so I must be okay. I must be worth something if someone keeps doing that over and over and over and over and over again.
Well, that's what I was talking about, and you and I talked about it too. I think I shared with you the little kid that is asking for mommy or daddy's attention. They're told to go wait and 5 more minutes, and then 10 more minutes, and all at once they go over and they kick the plant over, or they throw the ball across the room and something, and the parent inevitably jumps out of the chair and gives them full attention. And I was talking with somebody else about that, just the whole idea of they want to feel valued. They want to feel they have some form of attention from you, even if it's bad attention. It doesn't always work. Daddy won't always play with me. Mommy won't always play with me. But if I go over there and start strangling the cat, don't do that, kids. That will get their attention. And it's funny because watching that video, which I'll be honest, all of my training, I have not looked at that video before. Surprising. So, in looking at it, it kind of confirmed for me what I've been saying or what I've been talking with folks about. And that is, you can even see it in the infant stage. It was, I'll laugh, you didn't laugh back. I'll point, you didn't point back. I'll put out a scream, a little bit one, you didn't do that. I'll start reaching for you, which is basically, I guarantee if the mom in that video had leaned forward, the child would have started smacking her face or doing something. And what? I will start crying. When I start crying, that always gets you. And so it's funny, just for me in my head, I've always thought about that with 4, 5, 6 teenagers, even with adults. If you won't give me attention for the good behavior, I'll do bad behavior. I hadn't really thought of it so much in that, not that it's bad behavior because the baby wasn't being bad. We don't call babies bad. But I wanted mama's attention, and I did everything that normally works. So I will go to screaming and crying, or I'll throw the toy.
And I've heard this out there, and I don't know who started it, or if anybody knows who started it, but I think it's good language. We talk about language because we're saying seeking attention, and you'll hear parents say that, oh, he's just attention seeking. Well, one, everybody needs attention. We all attention seek, right? We attention seek with our spouses. We attention seek with our colleagues. We all attention seek. So why is it bad for a kid to attention seek? But I've heard that to try to change the phrase to their seeking attention to their seeking connection. And we could even change it up and say they're seeking regulation. That's what they're seeking, is regulation. And they need that connection. And that connection doesn't need to be an hour. Sometimes it's a minute. Sometimes it's 5 minutes. Sometimes it's a look and a smile, and that's all that they need. I watch my grandsons, and one of them, he fell at the baseball field on the cement and scraped his elbow, and nobody was like right on top of him when he did it. And both of his parents were on the baseball field helping his older brother's team, and Pop and I were in charge of the 2 younger ones. So I just sat there and watched him to see, did he really get hurt bad? What's he going to do? And I saw him kind of like he's 4. So he's got a little bit of self-regulation that's starting to build at 4. And he's bouncing a little bit, and he's got his hand on the elbow, but he's not crying. He's not hollering. He's not looking for his mama or anything like that. Well, then I walked over and I said, "Are you okay?" Well, he pulled his sleeve up, saw the little teeny speck of blood on the elbow. He's crying. And then, of course, Mama over in the dugout hears it. She comes out. He needs a Band-Aid now. And there's nothing that is going to make his life better until he gets a Band-Aid. Mama doesn't have a Band-Aid in all of her baseball gear that she's got at the baseball field. Pop says, "I got one in the car." So he goes to get a Band-Aid. And I said, "You want to go with Pop? Yep." And he jumps up and he goes to Pop to the car to get the Band-Aid and is fine. So yes, I'm sure it hurts. He was handling it until he saw there was an actual injury with blood. Then it was the only person that can help me to regulate now is Mama. Mama heard it, comes out the dugout, takes care of the little one. Pop jumps in and helps, and we're good. Mom goes back to the dugout and we're good. So looking at that, now had I not gone over there and said, "Are you okay?" he may have just gone on back to playing and never would have even known until a little bit of blood maybe came through his shirt. He knows because he had on a long sleeve shirt. So, there was no tear in the shirt or anything. So I'm not saying that you don't check on your kids. You certainly do, but also recognizing that regulation is different. And when that was a 4-year-old who has a little bit more regulation on board, it still needs some co-regulation also obviously, but when you're talking about an infant, they don't have that. And so that's why I know some parents, they can figure out, honestly, I don't know about you, I could never figure out the cries of my babies of which ones meant what. I just went through the checklist, like, are they dry? When did they eat last? Is it nap time? Have we been up too long for a nap? I just kind of do the checklist every time. Some people say they can learn their baby's cries. Maybe I don't have that gift. I don't know. But I just went through all the, what are the possibilities? And it's not always about a physical need. The connection is also a need where they want to be seen and heard, and they want to know they're seen and heard, and that they're cared about. And yes, those things are important, but they're not the whole picture.
Well, I think connection is the key word in there. It's not even about like you said, the feed me, the hold me, the do whatever. Sometimes just to know that you're there and feel connected with you in some way, shape, or form. I want to jump. There's a little note that I have over here for our listeners and for our viewers. Every now and then, we'd like to throw out a big word to show that we know what we're talking about. Amy, you know more than I do. Neuroplasticity.
Yes.
That is in my notes. It says address neuroplasticity. You go ahead and address it. I'm going to take notes on it.
Well, neuroplasticity.
I'm sure it has something to do with all of this.
Well, yeah, it does. It's how we're developing regulation. It's okay. the pathways that are being built. So almost talking about what you were saying before, kids learn. And I know people talk about this. Why do kids not respond until I yell? You tell them 3 times and then I raise my voice, then they pay attention, right? Or like the opposite is like kid who it isn't very clear what they need or what they want, but then they figure it out. If they scream and yell, they'll get parents' attention, right? Right. It's a pathway. Neuroplasticity is basically how we lay down pathways in our brain, and it's like pathways. And actually, there's a quote by Bruce Perry that's a really good one that we probably should throw up on here at some point in the editing or whatever. But he talks about trauma is like when you have trauma, the way that you manage things and the way you handle memories and all of that. We talked about some of that before the hippo. Is you're like 2-lane road and you just sort of are beating that 2-lane road to death. And when you heal and you get therapy, and then basically the goal of therapy is to build a 4-lane highway next to that 2-lane road. You can't get rid of the 2-lane road. It's going to be there. There's not a lot we can do about it, but you don't need to keep using it. And the reason that we have neuroplasticity means that we have the ability to build new roads. We have the ability to build new paths. And so we can build new ones. And babies are building pathways to learn how to do things incredibly quickly. Think about from 0 to 12 months, the difference in that. I could throw up pictures of, at the end, but I think everybody can picture an infant and a 1-year-old. The one we saw in the video was about 1 year old. So, but you're talking about the sounds they make, the movement that they do, what they're eating has changed. They're probably crawling and walking All of those things happen because of neuroplasticity. We are able to lay down new ability. And those pathways sometimes are between different systems, like walking, right? Your eyes and your motor skills and your muscles and your bones, like your brain has to control all of that. So you have to lay down like an instruction path from the brain down to your legs, which is why they're wobbly at first. And then it's also, they talk about how you learn how to ride a bike, right? So after you've learned how to ride a bike, you've laid down a pathway of how to ride a bike. You don't have to necessarily remember how to do that because that pathway is down there and it's laid down, and you can do it without recalling. I've been listening to you because we're doing the book study at work on that, the boy who was raised as a dog by Dr. Perry. And he talks about why you don't remember common everyday things that you do all the time, like brushing your teeth. Your brain doesn't need to remember every single time you brush your teeth because that wastes space. You don't need to have 365 memories of teeth brushing every single year. However, if something traumatic happens while let's say it doesn't even have to be traumatic. I think the example he gives in the book is like you're on a camping trip and you're brushing your teeth and there's this just gorgeous sunset and there's birds chirping and it's just such a beautiful environment. You will probably remember that time that you brushed your teeth. Or let's say, God forbid, you have a stroke while you're brushing your teeth. You may now have a traumatic memory associated with teeth brushing, and that particular teeth brushing incident is going to get laid down in your memory. So that's sort of how neuroplasticity, in a lot of different ways, it's about how we function, but also with our memory. But the belief used to be that we know babies are very plastic and the way that their brain is, and change happens really, really fast. And it is fast. But it used to be kind of like, oh, well, once you're not a baby anymore, you hit adulthood, you're SOL. And you're not, or everything's been laid down the way that it's laid down. And for all you alpha beta people, if you don't know what SOL is, go ask a boomer. They can tell you. What am I, Gen Z? What am I? I think I'm Gen Z.
I don't know. All I know is I bring up neuroplasticity to show how smart we are. And the best clinical term you have is SOL. You just totally undermine we're really smart.
I'm Generation X. You and I are Generation X. We followed the baby boomers.
Following program includes stories and situations that are not intended to identify any client or individual. Any similarities are coincidental and should not be considered reflective of any one person or group of people. The preceding program in no way constitutes therapeutic counseling and does not establish a therapeutic relationship or offer any premise of confidentiality with any listener or participant. If you or someone you know is in need of counseling services and reside in the Commonwealth of Virginia, please visit us at heartmindrva.com for more information.